It's a great big pool that we use to train the astronauts on how to do spacewalks.
Somewhere in Houston sits a pool bigger than a football field, 40 feet deep, holding 6.2 million gallons of climate-controlled water. Every single day, astronauts put on a 300-pound suit and get lowered into it by crane. This isn't training for a swim meet. It's the closest place on Earth to being in space. The facility is called the Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory, and it's named after an astronaut most people have never heard of. Manly Sonny Carter Jr. was a NASA astronaut and physician who died in a commercial airline crash in 1991. He never got to see the pool that now carries his name. NASA bought the building from McDonnell Douglas in the early 90s and spent years turning it into one of the largest indoor training pools ever built. Today, it sits on the grounds of Johnson Space Center, kept at a constant 84 to 86 degrees Fahrenheit, filled with chlorinated fresh water, and staffed by about 40 full-time divers. But a pool on its own teaches you nothing. What makes this one different is what's at the bottom of it. Under the water sits a full-scale replica of the International Space Station. Real modules, full-size airlocks, the same trusses and handrails astronauts will encounter 300 miles above Earth. When crew training is in session, that replica is where the entire day happens. By comparison, a standard Olympic pool holds around 253,000 gallons. This one holds about 24 times that, enough room to submerge nearly the whole station at once. The only reason it isn't the full ISS is because the station itself is now too big to fit.
It's 102 feet wide and 202 feet long, 40 feet deep.
Most training days start early. Before the suit goes on, the astronaut sees a flight doctor for a full physical. If anything is off, the day ends before it starts. After the exam comes the briefing. Engineers, trainers, divers, and the astronauts themselves walk through every task on the schedule and every backup plan for when something goes wrong. Nothing that happens in the pool is improvised. Then comes the suit. The Extravehicular Mobility Unit, or EMU, weighs around 300 pounds on the surface. Getting into it isn't like putting on a coat. It takes a team, a platform, and about an hour of careful assembly.
So Tim, you need to be between the camera and the platform.
Before the helmet goes on, the astronaut starts breathing pure oxygen, sometimes for up to an hour, to flush nitrogen out of their bloodstream. That part isn't just simulation. In real spacewalks, skipping it can cause decompression sickness, the same condition deep-sea divers get when they surface too fast. Only after all of this does the astronaut actually enter the water. A crane picks them up from the platform and lowers them in. The moment they go under, the weight seems to vanish.
We can actually practice doing a spacewalk, or an EVA as we call it, for extravehicular activity on hardware that's very flight-like.
Divers attach small lead weights at specific points on the suit until the astronaut neither sinks nor floats. They just hang there, suspended. This is neutral buoyancy, and it's the whole reason the facility exists. From that moment, the astronaut is no longer alone. 4 divers are assigned to them personally. 2 safety divers, whose only job is watching for trouble. 1 utility diver, who moves tools and sets up work sites. And 1 camera diver, who streams live footage to a control room where a team watches on 21 monitors. The divers breathe a high-oxygen nitrox blend, because at 40 feet deep, working long shifts, a normal air tank wouldn't give them enough bottom time to stay down safely. If you've ever wondered how precisely choreographed a spacewalk actually is, the answer is every single movement. If you want more looks inside NASA's weirder corners, from vacuum chambers to lunar training setups, subscribe. We dig into stories like this regularly. Back to the pool. The astronaut spends roughly 6 hours underwater, which is about the length of a real spacewalk. Every task they'll perform in orbit, they do here first.
That are watching them, making sure they're safe, that are carrying their tools around.
Replace a broken pump, swap out a battery, reroute a cable. Some of those tasks take 15 minutes on paper and 4 hours in practice. Because in a pressurized suit with thick gloves, even turning a bolt becomes an endurance exercise. It's estimated that for every hour an astronaut spends on an actual spacewalk, they've spent at least 7 hours, sometimes closer to 10, doing that exact task in this pool. But there's a catch that doesn't get talked about much. The NBL doesn't actually simulate space, it approximates it. Water creates drag, which means it's harder to start moving, but easier to stop. In space, the opposite is true. An object you push keeps going forever until something stops it. Astronauts who train here have to mentally correct for that difference every single time they go up. And because they still have weight inside the suit, certain positions, like being upside down, get physically uncomfortable after a while. The pool is the best training tool on Earth. It also isn't quite the real thing. That gap matters. In 2013, an Italian astronaut named Luca Parmitano nearly drowned during a real spacewalk when a clogged filter caused water to pool inside his helmet. He couldn't see. He couldn't hear through the sloshing. He had to find his way back to the airlock almost blind.
Copy and...
The investigation that followed rewrote the safety protocols used at the NBL today. Every training run now includes deliberate failures, from dropping oxygen levels to dead communication to tools that drift out of reach. Astronauts practice until the response stops being thought and becomes muscle memory. By the end of a training day, the astronaut has been suited up for close to 8 hours. They've moved through dozens of tasks. They've had their gear tested and retested. And then they do it all again, a week later, and again after that. For a crew member assigned to a complex mission, the full training cycle can add up to over 100 hours underwater before launch. Since the NBL opened in 1995, the dive team has logged more than 326,000 professional dive hours without a major incident. That number exists because every person in the building treats the pool like the thing it actually is. The final rehearsal before the most unforgiving environment any human has ever worked in. Somewhere above it all, the International Space Station keeps orbiting. Every handhold, every tether, every turn of a bolt an astronaut has made up there was practiced first, at the bottom of a pool in Houston. The real question is whether a simulation on Earth can ever truly prepare you for something so unforgiving. So far, decades of spacewalks say it can get you remarkably close.